The morning it happened was deceptively calm, the kind of quiet that hides something uneasy beneath its stillness. I stood by the kitchen window, cradling a cup of tea gone cold, watching my daughter-in-law Claire in the yard. Her movements were sharp, impatient. She carried a small bundle in her arms, pink against her gray sweater. For a fleeting second, I thought she was holding my granddaughter's blanket to fold or wash. But then she dropped it into the trash bin. Just like that, gone, my heart stuttered. That blanket wasn't just fabric. It was the last piece of my son Daniel that still felt alive. He'd wrapped Lily in it every night until the day he died. I'd knitted it myself, stitch by trembling stitch, while he waited for the birth of his first child. Watching it fall into the garbage felt like watching him vanish all over again. Claire didn't even glance back. She wiped her hands, straightened her coat, and left for work, her heels clicking sharply against the path. There was something about the way she moved, not careless, but deliberate, as though she'd just finished burying something she didn't want found. Grief has a way of distorting reason, but that moment didn't feel like grief. It felt like warning. I couldn't shake it. I waited until her car disappeared down the road before stepping outside. The air smelled of rain and metal. The trash lid was half closed, the blanket's corner peeking out. I hesitated, ashamed almost, but then reached in and pulled it free. It was damp, heavy. As I spread it across the porch rail, I felt something hard sewn into the fabric. A shape, small, rectangular. It didn't belong there. My first thought was that it was a baby toy or a forgotten trinket, but instinct told me otherwise. The weight was too firm, too deliberate. My fingers trembled as I traced the seam, finding a line of thread that wasn't mine, newer, tighter. Someone had hidden something inside. For years, I'd told myself Daniel's death was an accident. The police said the brakes failed. Claire said she didn't remember much, that everything happened so fast. And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But standing there, holding that blanket, I felt the first crack in the story we'd all been told. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong, and whatever secret that blanket carried, whatever Claire had tried to throw away, I knew I couldn't ignore it. Not this time. So I carried it back inside, the fabric dripping rainwater onto the floor, my heart pounding with a realization I couldn't yet name. That morning, I thought I was retrieving a memory. I didn't know I was unearthing the truth. My name is Margaret, 68 years old, retired teacher, widow of a man who believed hard work could fix anything. I used to believe that too, until the day the world took my son, Daniel. He was everything a mother could hope for, gentle, curious, and endlessly patient. Even as a child, he had a quiet strength, the kind that didn't shout but steadied those around him. When his father died, Daniel became my reason to keep breathing. Every corner of this house carries his presence. The faint scent of his cologne on an old scarf. The dent in the hallway where he'd once dropped a bookshelf trying to surprise me on my birthday. Then came Claire. She arrived like sunlight breaking through a cloud, poised, elegant, quick to charm. Daniel was smitten from the start, and I told myself she'd be good for him. She worked in real estate, spoke with confidence, and seemed to know exactly what she wanted from life. But there was a chill beneath her grace, something I couldn't define. At first, I thought it was just the way grief changes people. When Daniel died, the car skidding off the highway, the wet road glistening with rain, she didn't cry at the funeral. Not once. She stood by the casket with her jaw set, holding Lily so tightly the child whimpered. I told myself she was in shock. We all grieve differently, I thought. But even after months passed, she never spoke of him. Not to me, not to Lily. Still, I tried to understand. I helped her move into our home because she said she couldn't bear to be alone. I cooked, cleaned, rocked Lily to sleep when Claire worked late. It should have brought us closer, but instead, it felt like living beside a locked door. There were small things at first. Her late-night calls, her habit of checking the mail before I could, the way she avoided Daniel's study entirely. Once I caught her burning something in the fireplace. When I asked, she smiled lightly and said, "Old bills." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to stop feeling like a stranger in my own house. But that morning, when I pulled Lily's blanket from the trash, everything I'd buried under politeness and fear rose to the surface. I couldn't shake the image of her eyes that day, sharp, watchful, like someone guarding a secret too heavy to hold. Whatever was hidden inside that blanket, it wasn't just fabric and thread. It was a message, one Daniel had left behind, or one Claire wanted to erase. For the first time since my son's death, I felt something stronger than sorrow. I felt suspicion. And with it came a quiet, dangerous thought: if the truth was buried, I was going to dig it up. I laid the blanket across the kitchen table, smoothing it flat beneath the dim light. The rain outside tapped softly against the window, a rhythmic whisper that made the silence feel heavier. My hands trembled as I traced the fabric, searching for the strange lump I'd felt earlier. When my fingers found it again, small, solid, perfectly rectangular, my heart began to pound. The thread along the hem was too tight, too clean. I'd stitched this blanket myself. I knew every imperfection, every uneven loop. This wasn't my work. Someone had added to it, hidden something in it. For a moment I considered stopping. Maybe it was nothing, a broken toy, a lost remote, something innocent. But that word innocent no longer belonged in this house. Not since Daniel's death, not since the lies began to whisper louder than the truth. I fetched my sewing kit from the drawer, the same one I'd used to mend Daniel's shirts when he was small. The scissors felt cold in my hand. I slid the tip beneath the foreign stitching and snipped. One thread, two. The seam loosened slowly, revealing a narrow slit. And inside, something dark and metallic. A phone. It was old, scratched, and unmarked. My breath caught as I held it up to the light. Why would Claire hide a phone inside a child's blanket? Curiosity and dread wrestled in my chest. My thumb brushed the power button, and to my shock, the screen lit up. A faint glow, ghostly against the kitchen shadows. A lock screen appeared, asking for a passcode. I stared at it for a long moment before typing in Daniel's birthday. The screen unlocked instantly. I felt my stomach drop. Messages filled the display, hundreds of them. Most from a single contact. M. The words blurred as I scrolled, my pulse quickening with each line. She won't question anything. Once the paperwork clears, we're done. He trusts you. Make it look like an accident. A low ringing filled my ears. I could barely breathe. The words pulsed on the screen like open wounds. Claire. The woman I'd let live in my home. The mother of my granddaughter. She was part of something unspeakable. My trembling fingers opened the photo gallery. The first image was Daniel, smiling by his car. The second was of the same car, headlights glowing in the rain, the night he died. And then a picture of a man I didn't recognize, his arm around Claire, captioned, "Tomorrow's freedom." My heart turned to stone. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the floor. I stared at it, unable to move. Outside, thunder rolled, low and distant, as if the sky itself understood. The truth was no longer buried. It had been sewn into my granddaughter's blanket. And now, it was in my hands. I sat at the kitchen table long after the storm had passed, the phone and the torn blanket spread before me like evidence of a crime I hadn't meant to uncover. The air was thick with the faint scent of rain and betrayal. I kept telling myself to wait, to think, to breathe. But when Claire's car pulled into the driveway, reason fled. Her footsteps echoed across the porch, confident, familiar. The door opened, and she froze when she saw me sitting there. Her eyes flicked from my face to the blanket, then to the phone. For the first time, I saw something raw behind her composure. Not guilt, not shame, but fear. "Claire," I said quietly, "we need to talk." She tried to smile. "What's going on? Why are you up so late?" I pushed the phone toward her. The screen glowed faintly, one message still open. Her expression didn't change, but the color drained from her face. "Where did you get that?" "From Lily's blanket," I said, my voice steady though my hands shook. "The one you threw away this morning." Her mouth opened, closed. Then she exhaled slowly. "You shouldn't have looked. Daniel trusted you, I whispered. He loved you, her eyes hardened. Daniel was weak. He would have destroyed everything we built. The words struck like a slap. I rose from my chair, gripping the table for balance. You call what you did building? You killed him. You made it look like an accident. And you thought no one would ever know. For a heartbeat, silence hung between us, sharp and unbearable. Then, with chilling calm, she said, You think the police will believe you? There's no proof now. That phone could have been planted. You're old, grieving, confused, but she was wrong. The fear in her voice betrayed her. I picked up my phone and dialed. Maybe they'll listen to the recordings, I said. The messages. The photos. She moved suddenly, lunging for the device on the table. Instinct took over. I stepped back, clutching the phone to my chest. Don't, I warned. It's over. For a moment, we stared at each other. Two women bound by love for the same man, but separated by everything that love had meant. When the sirens wailed in the distance, she slumped into the chair across from me, her face empty. He wasn't supposed to die like that, she murmured. We just wanted freedom, freedom. That was her word for it. The officers arrived minutes later. As they let her out, she turned once toward me, not pleading, not apologizing, just staring, cold and hollow. When the door closed behind her, the house felt heavier than ever. I picked up the torn blanket, pressing it to my chest. The truth had cost me everything, but at last, it had a voice. The house is quieter now than it has ever been. Some nights, I can still hear Daniel's laughter echo faintly in the hallway, not as memory, but as something living in the air itself. I used to fear that silence. Now I let it stay. It's the only part of him that hasn't been taken from me. After Claire's arrest, the world didn't rush to comfort me. Grief is loud when it's fresh, but justice arrives quietly, without ceremony, without healing. Months passed before I could even walk past Daniel's room without stopping at the door. The police returned the baby blanket once the case was closed. I washed it carefully, folding it the same way I had the day Lily came home from the hospital. The stitches I'd cut open were uneven, but I left them that way. A scar in the fabric, a reminder of what truth costs. Lily doesn't remember much. She's 6 now, with Daniel's blue eyes and a laugh that makes every wall seem warmer. I tell her stories about her father, how he loved to read her bedtime songs instead of lullabies, how he once painted her nursery the wrong color and refused to admit it. I never speak of her mother, not yet. One day, when she's old enough to understand, I'll tell her everything. For now, I just tell her that her parents loved her, and that her father was brave. Sometimes she asks why I keep that old pink blanket in the drawer beside my bed. I tell her it's a treasure, a piece of the past that once saved us both. She smiles and says, then it's magic. Maybe she's right. Maybe in its own quiet way, it is. There are nights when I still wake to the sound of rain on the roof, the same sound that carried Daniel away. I lie there listening, waiting for the ache to fade. It never truly does. But I've learned that pain can be more than sorrow. It can be memory, proof that love once lived deeply enough to leave a mark. I used to think the truth destroyed me. Now I see it differently. The truth didn't break me. It stripped me bare, showed me who I was beneath the grief, and forced me to stand again. The blanket sits folded neatly in the drawer. I touch it sometimes, not for comfort, but as a promise. To remember, to protect, to never doubt what my heart whispers when something feels wrong. Because even the smallest thread can unravel the darkest lie. And in that unraveling, I found not just the truth about my son's death, but the strength to keep living for the life he left behind.